You're listening to The Dating Den with dating and relationship badass and best-selling author Marni Batista. Every week, you'll get the raw truth from top experts and real people on the important dating, sex, and relationship issues you want to know about. So if you're ready for true talk that's authentic and unfiltered, and you're not afraid to be called out on your stuff, then you're ready for what's next.
Welcome to The Dating Den, Episode 4 with Marni Kinrys, Understanding Men, What They Really Desire. Hey ladies, welcome back to The Dating Den. I am especially excited for today's episode, today's show, because, you know, women wish that they had this, app that they could, pull up and put it up to a man's brain when he's got that look in his eye and you're like, what the fuck is he thinking right now? What do men think? As if they are these other sort of humans. And if we could just figure them out, then we would solve our dating problems. But we know, while that's not true, it really does help to understand men, which is why I have brought for you the other Marni Kinrys, one of my favorite people who really is just an expert at working with men. She's creator of the Wing Girl Method. She's a dating coach. She's a radio and TV personality. She's a best-selling author. And she has an amazing podcast that I have been privileged to be on, which is amazing. And really, she's the ultimate wing girl to hundreds of thousands of men around the world. She's spent the last 10 years helping men, and actually now women, meet and attract and understand each other through her top-rated blog, Wing Girl Method. She's got one-on-one coaching, and she's also got some really awesome self-help books. And the first question I always get when I talk about dating coaches and helping men, so I'm just going to ask you this straight out, and thank you for being here, by the way.
Of course. Thank you. Oh, well, now I'm nervous. What are you going to ask me?
Well, the question I get is she one of those coaches that teaches men how to be douchebags, how to, have sex? I mean, it's as if there's this movement, right? There's this thing of let's teach guys how to make moves on women. Or is she, the question, they're is there a coach that does the same thing that you do for men? To teach them, to help them be quality guys. So can you just first lay down the law about those two camps?
I have been called a misogynist by some women out there, but I am the furthest thing from it. I don't think they actually read my material correctly. So my tagline is I teach men how to attract, date, seduce, and get the women they want without being a douchebag and without being a creep. So I teach men about high integrity, building up their confidence, learning to respect women, not using manipulation tactics, and objectifying women to get them. I'm a woman. So I don't want anybody to do that to me. So I don't even know how to teach men how to be a douchebag, to be honest. There's lots of guys out there who do that. They're pickup artists. They practice it every single day. They have, a lot of insecurities, and that's where that behavior comes from. I am a woman. I'm confident as a woman, and I want to teach men how to be confident as men so they can make women extremely happy. So no, I'm not one of those douchey people who learn how to be jerks.
I'm so glad you got that straight for us. Yeah. Because and it's sort of sad that in honor of men, I'm sad that there seems to be this campaign of there's these two kinds of guys, because I really feel like there are actually quality guys everywhere, and that if a woman can sort of be in that vibration, be that woman that a high quality man is attracted to, then the douchebags sort of aren't part of your dating experience. So I
completely agree. Or they are a part of your dating experience, but you cut them out very quickly.
Totally, and you can totally recognize them. So let's so we're here to talk about the quality men. If you could just sum it up, what are men thinking about when it comes to dating? Really,
it's so funny, because when you were doing your intro and you were don't you wish you could just read a man's mind when he gives a blank stare? I will tell you that 95% of the time, what they're actually thinking is, oh, I'd like pizza, or I'd like American Idol. They're really not thinking as much as you're thinking in your own head. If you give them something to think about, then they'll think about those things. But typically, they're not thinking what you're thinking at all.
Okay, and so, but are there men So are there men who are actually like sitting there and thinking about dating?
Yeah, that's who I work with every single day. I get contacted by thousands of men. Yeah, it's so funny because the reason I started working with women recently is because I didn't realize that subconsciously, after working with men for 13 years, like hundreds of thousands of men, I was learning so much about them, information that I would have never had access to before, because these men were opening up to me. They were telling me all their secrets, like the things that men tell me. Sometimes I'm shocked that they're telling a complete stranger these personal things about themselves they haven't said to anybody else. So the men that contact me aren't the douchebags who are looking to manipulate. And if they are, I quickly set them straight and say, like, here are 3 other sites you can go to.
Right.
I can help you in a different direction. So most of these men they're really, overall, they're looking for options, right? They want to be that guy that they see who just walks into a room and gets the attention from women. It's not about being with tens, as they label them, or about sleeping with lots of women. They just don't want to be that guy who's unseen in a room. They want to be able to select, like you just said, quality women to bring into their lives. And then they potentially want to be in a relationship. They don't. Most of them don't say right off, "I'm looking to get married. Help me now." But they say, "I just want a good girl. I want a good girl who respects me, who loves me, who I don't have to chase over and over again, who I don't have to convince to be with me, who doesn't put me in the friend zone for months at a time." So these are wonderful men, and there's so many of them out there. And the thing is that for so long, women have been really lucky because there's so much information out there in the open space for women to talk about their frustrations and their concerns and their confusion about men. There's magazines. There's everything that's catered towards women in terms of self-help for dating and relationships. For men, a lot of that stuff isn't out there as overtly. And the things that did start to become out there first, before anything else was happening, before myself came onto into the world, or other people that are sort of like me, was the pickup artist stuff, where there was manipulation and objectifying of women, because there were a lot of angry men. So that was the only place for men to get their resources from. Luckily now there are so many more amazing resources for good quality men who just want to become better with women and understand women, and then get the options that they've always wanted.
So that's really important, because I think women need to hear, when you were describing, a man wants to walk into a room and be seen and have options. Ladies, does that sound familiar? Right? Because we all just want to be seen. So when a quality guy is laying in bed at night, what's keeping him up? What's he worrying about in that moment, when he walks in and he just feels like he has no options, or
that he's going to screw up, that he is going to be rejected, that he's going to fall flat on his face, that he's going to build attraction and then lose it by saying something stupid, and he doesn't want to do that. These are the stresses that they fear every single day. It's funny because I think with apps now and so many things available where you can put a wall up between you and another person, and plus all the rejections that men have experienced in the past without knowing how to truly handle rejection in a confident manner, it's really scared people off and made men, especially, it scared men off, and they don't want to make an approach unless they know 100% that they're going to get the green light of yes. They're afraid to disrespect. They're afraid to get sued. They're afraid of so many things. The biggest thing they're afraid of is rejection, and just having a woman once again either turn a cold shoulder to them, or tell them that they have a boyfriend or that they're married, or flake on them after they give them their phone number. It's just a lot of wasted time for men, and it really beats on their ego and their security levels. So they're not as confident as they once were, and they want that 100% green light. Yes, this girl is going to say yes, and she actually is going to follow through and be there.
That's so important, because I really want women to hear this, because when I'm coaching women, I'm telling them, even if they're setting a boundary, or they're busy on Wednesday, but they want to go out with him, that it's really important that in their language, they're really giving the guy like, and I know this sounds super cheesy, but it's like, the Oreo sandwich, right? Like, oh my God, I'm so glad you asked me out. I would love to see you. Wednesday doesn't work for me, but I'm totally free like Thursday or Sunday. Like,
yes, it's not cheesy at all. It's perfect. It's just clear communication. And I know so many women are afraid. You're like, that makes me look desperate, or I don't even really know the thoughts that go through someone's head who doesn't give more information to say, yeah, I'm interested in what you're offering up. So clear communication is so important. You're not saying I'm in love with you and I will bend over backwards and change every one of my plans, but I'm busy on Thursday. You're saying I'm not free this Wednesday, but it's a top priority for me to see you, or I really want to get to know you. So I am available on the following days. Do any of those work for you?
That is so awesome. So it's really, really important. And I think a lot of women, who are really busy, they forget that, especially through text messaging, which I think a lot of us are using, right?
Communicating.
Especially in dating, right? That it's really important to remember what Marni just said, is that so they have their own filter and their own perception based on women in the past who have flaked or have pretended to be into it, but they're just keep being busy and never actually say yes, right? Like, men have their own experiences of dating. So that's why it's really important that you understand that you almost have to be overt, right? In the green light.
Yes.
So that a guy...
The thing is that for a woman, her being overt is her still kind of being subtle.
Right.
Because most of the subtle things that we women do are not on a man's radar because they don't operate the same way. I know you talk about this stuff all the time. Like, the subtle communication that you do with other women will not come across to other men, mainly because they don't do it themselves and they just do not pick up on that frequency. So clear communication, clear actions, like touching a man on his arm or batting your eyelashes and smiling and engaging in conversation. Those things are not, so subtle, but they're not so aggressive either. And there are things that you need to do in order to say to a man, I'm into this. Like, you can ask me out. And you can even open your mouth and say, like, so when are you going to ask me out? You can be that overt, and it can still be feminine.
Right.
At the same time. Like, you don't have to grab him by the balls and say, like, ask me out, dude. Like, when are we going to go out on a date? But I know that a lot of women think that if they say things like, I'm not free this day, but I'm free that day, that they're being too aggressive or they're being the man. And I don't think that's the case at all.
I totally agree. We just did a whole episode on, like, how can you pursue without pursuing, right? So it's, right? It's about being flirtatious. Okay, I want to go back to something that you said that's super important. Is that men are sort of like more afraid, right? Because they don't want to be creepy. They don't want to be stalkery. So there's a lot of women who want men to step up and, like, ask them out and take them out and, ask for their number. And yet these guys are like, if I ask for a number, she's going to think, like, I'm going to, like, find her address and come to her house, right? And, right. So can you just talk a little bit about, like, what is the impact really of, like, I think there's total gender role confusion. And I know that a lot of my listeners want men to, like, be in the masculine, but women are, like, being in the masculine. So what's going on in man camp about this whole issue? Like, what's up? What are they doing? How are they responding? What can we do to sort of help with this issue?
Well, it's exactly as you just said. It's complete confusion and frustration, because sometimes when they hear from other people, just be a leader, they don't really know what that means, right? They don't have a good influence in their life who's shown them how to be a leader. They don't have good examples on television to show them how to be a leader, or they see examples of, like, but that guy's really hot and rich and I can't pull it off the same way as he can because I'm not hot and rich, so I can't be the exact same leader. It really comes down to their confidence levels first. But I know that so many men, if they were given a 5-minute window of a little bit of leeway where they're not being those super aggressors, and had a woman, I call it helping a brother out, by not being so subtle, they would be able to step up more if they were given guidance and guidelines or permission even to be a little bit more assertive, they would definitely follow suit to that. I think that men are so confused on what women want and what's acceptable right now that they just become paralyzed and frozen by all of this confusion, and therefore they become edited, polite, meek versions of themselves. So the more that women can do in terms of language, and also maybe a little bit of body language to help them out, to let them know that what they're doing is accepted, or that they can take the lead with them, the more beneficial it will be to both people. So I had this one guy write into my podcast, the Ask Women podcast, which you have been on, and you've been fantastic on it, and write, sometimes I go on dates with women and I pull a chair out for them, or I open the door for them, and they yell at me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so I'm just like, he's just like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to act. Because if I act like the gentleman that I want to be and take the lead in the way that I believe you're supposed to take the lead, I get yelled at for it. And I don't know who's going to yell at me for it. So now I either just don't date women, or I don't do any of those actions. But then I'm not being my true masculine leading self. What do I do? So that's just an example of how confusing it is for me.
Oh my God, that sort of breaks my heart. I mean, one of the things that and I'm glad that you said this, because it's really kind of reinforcing what I've been really teaching, is that, men are just like, tell me how to make you happy. Like, yes. Do you want me to call you and not just tell me? Because the last woman was like, why are you calling me? Just text me. Do you want me to be chivalrous? I'm chivalrous. I'd love to be chivalrous. Does that offend you? And
I follow instructions really well. And I know it's so unsexy. And as women, we're like, you should just know how to make me happy. And you should know that I want this, and do it on your own. But I do it with my husband all the time. And again, I hate having to do it. But when I clearly communicate something that makes me happy and something that I want without sort of expecting him to do it on his own, and then he does it for me, maybe not in that moment, but later on, it still feels good. And then he is reinforced on his own end to do that more, and then he'll do it on his own. But it feels so unromantic and so unmovie moment-ish when I'm telling him. But on the back end, it ends up being way better, because then he's not going around this maze trying to figure out what the hell to do to make me happy and screwing up half the time. He knows exactly what path to follow, because that's what men do really well. They follow direct paths.
Yep.
And then he can feel wonderful about himself because he's making me happy. And I reinforce it by telling him that what he did that I asked for made me really happy. And then he continues to do it. And it's just nice. And it's not the movie moment romantic stuff. Some people have that in them on their own, but most people don't, especially as you get deeper into a relationship. So you got to help a brother out sometimes, because it makes it easier on you and makes both of you happier.
Totally. And I think that, and what I hear you saying is it can start in the beginning of the courting stage, if you don't want to be a pen pal, but you're interested and intrigued, tell a guy in a feminine way, I'm interested, I'm intrigued. I know for me, I would love to hear your voice, so we could see if we have that kind of connection before we meet. Would that work for you, right?
Exactly. Or even if, you want to start seeing a guy on a more regular basis, I'm really enjoying getting to know you. It makes me so happy when I hear from you. I would love for us to see each other on a more regular basis, potentially once a week. How does that feel for you? What do you think about that? It's saying I'm into this. I enjoy you, but for me, I want to step this up a notch. And he can say yes and he can say no, or you can come to a compromise together, because he'll say to you, you know what, I'm very overwhelmed with work right now, but my schedule does free up in a couple of weeks. Then I'd like to get together on a more regular basis. Thanks for telling me that, So it's just it's clear communication, as opposed to, crying to your friends about it and complaining and getting mad at him for so long. Just instead of doing that, just talk to him about it, and then you'll get your answers much faster than you would have, talking to your girlfriend about it, because she has no clue how he's thinking or what he wants.
Exactly. I remember when I was dating, I had a guy just like that, and we were seeing each other irregularly, but it was always like sort of late, like 8 or 8:30 or 9. And it was dinner, and they were nice dates, but they always just started really late. But, it made the dates really super short. And so I fully was just like, I really enjoy getting to know you, and I've just noticed that our dates start late because you have an active, full schedule, and I would love to have some more time, to get to know you. And he was like, oh, shit. Oh my, you know what? You're totally right. Like, I didn't even realize that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he was just like, after the gym, after my meeting, and so he was like, thanks. Okay. Let me look at my schedule.
He can follow suit. Or he could let you know that he feels a different way and say, you know what, like, these things are more important to me, and I can't really adjust my schedule. Like, it could have gone either way, but I'm saying, like, that's how you get responses from people.
Exactly.
Is by open communication. Like, I have a program that's called That's Not How Men Work. And the reason I created this program was because as I started working more with men, I would start to notice that my advice to my female friends would shift from being very supportive and, helping them out emotionally and maybe bashing the guy that's in their life to making statements like, that's not how men work. When they would say, I wish you would just do this. And I would say, no, but that's not how men work. If you want them to work like that, like, it's never going to happen. And you're going to be disappointed over and over again. And they would say, well, how do men work? And I would tell them how they work. You have to understand the person that you're trying to potentially partner up with, either for a short-term period, a long-term period, for sex, whatever it is. You have to at least show that, or at least try to understand them. And by understanding them, you have to communicate with them so you can get the information you need, as opposed to just making your own assessment of their actions, because then you're defining them, or you're trying to understand them based on your own experience in your brain, and that's never going to work for you. And you're going to end up either losing out on opportunities or potentially staying in something way too long that just isn't working for either of you.
So this is like honestly huge. This is like the secret key, right? I really believe it. So I want you to all really hear this. So what Marni's saying is, like, understand them means actually hear them. Because I think what so many of us do, and I totally do this with my husband sometimes.
I do too.
I get attached to being right. And, we do this assessment with women, and like literally 97% of the women who take this assessment, it's called our D factor, they actually have it shows like in writing, like they have a strong need to be right. So I know for me, like I have a strong need to be right. And I stopped trying to understand my husband. Right? I just want to, I'm hearing him because I know that it's like not my turn to stop talking.
Right?
Right, but I'm not understanding. So what I really love about what you're saying, and I think this is a game changer, is if you let go of your attachments, right? If you stop making up a story about what you think he's thinking, wants, needs, or whatever it is, and you actually seek to understand through asking questions, through being curious, through having an assumption that he wants to make you happy, that he also is looking for a quality partner.
Yeah.
I feel like that would change like every interaction that a woman had with a man.
Oh, absolutely. But even to expand on that, like understanding who he is as a man. So let's say a woman is dating this guy and he doesn't really want to be monogamous, and he, enjoys dating other people, but when he's with this woman, he can give everything to her. He said it to her multiple times, like he's, not really into commitment, but they still have a great time with each other. All these things that in your mind, you're like, but he likes me so much. How can he not want to be with me and be committed to me? But he's saying to you out loud, like, that's just not the lifestyle that I've chosen. Understanding that man is to understand that that's actually who he is, and it's not going to ever change. And then deciding whether or not you're okay with that. And if you are okay with that, and you really truly believe that you can be okay with that and not try to change him or alter what he wants and who he is, then you relay that information with him. I hear what you're saying. You do not want commitment from me, but you're willing to give me happiness, you're willing to give me your time, but you want to explore other options at the same time. I get that, I understand that, and I accept that. But these are the things that I need from you if I'm going to accept that. Like, you can lay out how much time you want to spend with each other.
Totally.
And then you're saying, I understand you. I'm not going to get mad at you for being honest with me and telling me who you are, or I'm not going to try and change you, even though your actions, in my mind, say something else. You're being very clear with me on who you are. And then the same thing goes for understanding that a man in your life wants to make you happy, that his intention is not to hurt you or mislead you, so that if you start to interpret some of his actions as, I don't know, like in a negative way, right? Or he's trying to do X, Y, and Z to you. You know, and you understand your man that he would never do that at the core. Who he is a good person. And then you can talk to him differently about things where you're not so protective of yourself and against him. Really having that understanding of who the man is in front of you. And you get to know that as you get to know guys more and more and more. And the more that you can acknowledge to a man that you see him for who he is. So on a third date where you say, you know what, from our few dates, I really noticed that you're a very giving person. That means more to a man than telling him, like, how big his penis is. I mean, that's an important statement too, but but telling him that you see him on a deeper level. You're not just a CEO of X, Y, and Z. You're like a really giving, kind-hearted person. I didn't see that when we first met, and I really like seeing that side of you. It's nice.
I love that. So can I just go back, because I want to underline what you said?
Yeah, I said a lot of things.
You did. It was so awesome. So, because I always say men mean what they say and say what they mean, right? Like, I like you and I'm not looking for a relationship. I like you and I just got a divorce. I like you and I think women are selectively mute. They're like, I will change him because I'm so awesome. And so what Marni is saying is, seek not to change him. Seek to accept and make a choice.
Yeah, and then make your choice of what, of whether or not you're willing to live with that, work with that, be happy with that, and you can talk to him about it, and you can say, like, I'm having a tough time with the fact that you want to be with other women, but I really do enjoy spending my time with you. And then you can work out different ways that would make you more comfortable with the situation. So maybe you want communication about when he does something. Maybe you don't want communication about it. Maybe you want him to lie to you about being... You have to communicate what it is that would feel good for you. And if it's just not feeling good for you and not the right match, then it's not right for you. Even if you get so much happiness out of that person, that's going to bring you unhappiness.
Awesome. That's so good. Okay. So I'm gonna speak on behalf of all these women that I talk to every single day, and they want to know, Marni, why do guys disappear?
Why do girls disappear?
Well, so that's just it. So this is a funny thing, because every time I talk to someone who works with men, they're like, women are so flaky. Yeah. And women, I love you all. Like, we love all of you all, but don't pretend that you haven't just disappeared yourself. So, but for the sake of it, what's going on when a guy disappears? And the other question, actually, we had
someone who... He's not so invested. He's not that invested. He's disappearing because they're single focused. You are on his mind when you are on his mind, right? So if he disappears for 3 weeks, he's telling you a lot about where he is and how he thinks about you. And that can be altered for sure when you ask him to think about you and ask him to think about what's going on between the two of you, and then he can tell you openly and honestly and possibly adjust his behavior if he's so inclined to. But most often, when somebody disappears, they disappear because they're not that invested in you.
Well, right. So tell me this. Is there ever a situation where it's dignified, it's okay to follow up if a guy disappears? Or is your opinion, since you work with men, just let him go? Just chalk it up to it's not a match?
It depends on every situation, to be honest. So if you're at the beginning of an interaction and you meet this guy or girl and you get their phone number, or they get your phone number, and you hear from them once, and then they slowly start to spread out how much they're contacting you, and their communication is brief, and you try and make plans, but then you don't really try and make plans. It's just polite information being sent back and forth to the person. I wouldn't say to try anymore with that person, because you have nothing that you've really connected on or bonded on. But if you have been dating somebody for a few months and they disappear, or ghosting or whatever you want to call it, then yeah, you can put something out there and just say, I don't know, through text or email, or if you do get them on the phone, you can say, I've really enjoyed our time together. I'm a little confused as to where you disappeared to. I know in my heart of hearts what you're trying to say to me, but I would love some sort of communication from you that says what you're thinking. Or I think you can always put that out there. I feel like once you're past a certain level with somebody, like you've dated a few times, I think you can respectfully ask for that information. And if they don't text you back or call you back at that point, then you know.
Then you know, right? Okay, so I love that. So and I'm also all about like tools, not rules. So there is no rule on this. It's like you have to take each circumstance. What has the guy earned? What is your relationship? The texture, the quality, content of it. But I love that because I totally agree. Like in certain situations, and I love the language that you use. So like everybody should like rewind and like write that exactly down, right? Like it's a really lovely way of saying like I'm just confused. I just love some information, closure, your experience, and I'm good. I just kind of want to know. Yeah. So I love that. Okay, so I have a topic for us. The last time I was on your podcast, it got heated about this topic about like why, men are intimidated by strong women, men are intimidated by women making more. Is that really a thing? I talk openly. I'm the primary breadwinner in my relationship. I think that it's a really important topic for successful women because it can really narrow our options if we are sort of like, he has to be like this. And I think men are confused. We talked about gender roles. So tell me, since that moment, that heated moment, what's going on back at the man camp about this whole issue about money, money, money?
It's funny because I forget what happened with that guy in the very end. Like I think we had found out about his divorce, and there was an issue that she had kind of divorced him because he didn't have enough money, or because he had lost his job, or something. I totally forget what it was. So that was definitely a sore spot for him, where there's like a magnifying glass on women only want guys with money. Yeah. But I will say a lot of men have this belief and may have this anger and frustration towards women for it. I don't think that that's shifted. I think that, that's a very individual thing, how men think about money. I will say that men are, their masculinity is very closely associated with how much they make, how much power they have, what kind of women are in their lives. Because that's like locker room talk. I'm talking like Trump now. But those are the things that are like that other men sort of value, at least openly, like maybe underneath they value different things, but what they're kind of supposed to value in the locker room are those things. So anything that sort of hurts a man in those spaces can really directly affect their masculinity. Like, for example, a lot of men who are in a relationship but they don't feel like they're so established. Maybe the woman does make more than them, or maybe she doesn't make more than them, but he isn't where he wants to be just yet. He's not going to be able to focus on marriage. Most men will not be able to focus on marriage at that point until they have accomplished what they need that defines them as a man that can be a married man. So that means either power, prestige, a certain financial level, and you can bypass this by more open communication about your needs as a woman and what you want and sort of what you expect from your mate. But ultimately, that's a very individual thing for men because it's attached to their masculinity, their pride, their ego, on what their definition is of man and being in that place. You know what I mean? I'm not sure if I'm saying this correctly, but
no, I get it.
That's very individual for a lot of guys. I would say that I wish that more guys had a much, more open attitude towards this, but I think at the very core, it's still there for a lot of men. It's a difficult thing.
Yeah, no, it totally is, and I don't think there is a black and white answer to it. But it also sort of speaks to this, which is one of the questions I wanted to get to, is like when you're on that date, I think a lot of women make a little bit of a mistake with, a small m, right? Just about like, how are you getting information about who this person is on a date? And I know that when I talk to men, a lot of them feel like, it's like a job interview,
Yeah.
right? And we're not going to just say, so how much do you have in your 401k? But it's like, so, where do you live and how long have you had that car and, where do you travel? And men are really smart, right? They're like, they get it. But
a lot of men are highly offended by questions like that.
Totally, right?
Or they're like, oh, she's just after my money, or I don't have enough money to date her. Some men get really angered by that.
I totally like, when I coach women, I'm like, we want to like find out who they are, about their values, and what's important to them. And the way that you approach a conversation on those first dates is really important, because remember, we've just talked about it. Men have their own filters of their own bad dating experiences. And this belief, like, my money is either she wants me for my money or I'll never get her because of my money. So how, like, what are some good questions a woman can ask a guy on a date without sounding like it's an interview that will really let her know he's a quality guy, like a good guy?
Well, you have to figure out what your values are and what you define as quality. And then I actually, rather than having questions, I like giving stories instead, so that you're still opening up about yourself and maybe your point of view on something, and then seeing how they respond. Like, let's say it's really important for you to be with a compassionate man, and you start your date off by saying, oh, I had a really hard week at work. I'm sorry that I'm a little bit frazzled, but I have... my boss has just been, whatever it is, like, usually you shouldn't start a date that way, but let's say that you want to figure out whether or not they're compassionate. So you say this out loud, and he goes, oh, that sucks. What do you want to drink? Right?
Exactly.
And so you're like, okay, that is a signal to you that maybe he may not be compassionate. But if you are looking for compassion and he does say, oh, that really sucks, I had the same thing with my job is the same thing, then you can see that he can kind of relate on that level. And that's just like a little way to get to know somebody. But I would say to take a step back, figure out what the top things are that you're trying to find out and what you define as quality. Like, what means quality to you? Is it that they have a big 401k or and a saver and plans for the future? If that is one of your top values, because I will be honest, like, it doesn't matter how much money is in that 401k,
right.
But for me, planning for the future and like having a safety net and is really important with me, as is living in the moment and enjoying your life. So I would talk about things or ask questions about, God, now I'm like put on the spot of what
I know, I'm like, what's a good story question?
It's not even like a good story question. It's not even like financial values, but you can talk about like something in your childhood, right? That you bring up, or you might say, well, my father, when we were young, he is a child of the Holocaust, and he was always about saving. And, I kind of felt bad for him because he always saved and then never really enjoyed his life. I definitely I love when you can do both. You save and be responsible, but you also enjoy your life. And if that guy relates to that story and says, oh, yeah, I'm the same way, or, oh, you know what, I don't save anything, I just want to live for the moment, then you can see about who he is and what his values are. And again, you decide for yourself whether his response is quality for you and tells you what you need to know, or whether it's not. It's saying that this is not a match for you at all, because that's going to drive you crazy later in life.
Totally. And, I was thinking, like, people always ask me, like, for specifics, like in that money area. So I love this idea of doing stories. So a client I was working with said that because money is a hot topic, she puts her money into experiences, not things.
Oh, yes. That's a good way of putting it.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, I did this. And then he shared a story about him skiing in Aspen. And you're like, okay, cha-ching, you've got money.
Exactly. Right. So, like, it's funny because
I've never been out of the country. It's something like that.
No, totally. My husband and I were talking about it this weekend because we splurged and we went to this, they called it Old Cella. It was Coachella for old people. Anyway, and we like totally splurged on these killer seats. And we were both just like commenting about how like, we're like, do we need to really like, buy that like new air conditioner, and it's like half the price. But we're like, oh my gosh, this is an experience. We're going to remember it for the rest of our lives, da, da, da. And so I knew that I like in the process of dating him, we had conversations about experiences versus things, or people who are foodies. So think about like the circumstances or how you use money or stories. I love Marni's advice. Yes. And then
that's a great way of putting it. Yes. By your experiences and seeing if they match up to somebody else. The thing is that most often when you do go on a date with somebody, you have some sort of idea about their lifestyle. You can see in their pictures. But I guess now with Tinder and Hinge and all these things, it is a little bit more challenging to find out those things because anybody can present themselves a certain way. So I think that's an awesome tip.
Okay, good. Awesome. Where's the Marnies? The Marnies rock. So it's funny. So here's a funny story from my weekend. I was walking and someone behind me said, this guy's in love with Marni. And I was like, do I know? I looked around. I thought it was somebody I knew. And I was like, did you just say Marni? And he was like, yeah, she's Marni. And it was this lady next to me. She goes, are you Marni with an I or a Y or an E?
So funny.
We hugged it out. Anyway, so yeah, it was funny.
I love it. Do you know that our assistants were having trouble communicating with each other because of all the Marnies that were included in the conversation? I think they just got confused because that's why we couldn't do our session last week. So they started labeling Marni K and Marni B. It's just, I thought it was funny.
I know. I love it. Okay. So let's talk about, I want to go back to this man and money thing just for a second and I'd love your opinion. Do you believe there are a lot of quality guys out there who are sort of passed over because they're not at a certain financial level, but they're financially responsible? I mean, do you think that women are missing out, or do you think no?
Yes,
if that's your
thing. I don't know whose fault that is, to be honest. I would say partly that's on the fault of men because, as I said before, a lot of their masculinity is tied to what they have. So therefore, they may not be projecting what those women would be attracted to, or they may not be approaching women because they think they're less than. So I think that, and maybe on the other side, there may be a lot of other women who, in their mind, they're like, yeah, this person does have to have X, Y, and Z, which is fine. If that's a value for you and you want to live up to a certain lifestyle, I completely understand and respect that. So I would say, yes, people in general are being passed up every single day because of lower confidence levels, misbeliefs, and just not enough people who are giving signals that they are open to being approached.
I love it. Okay, that's totally fair. So let's talk about this. Women go on dates, like my clients, they go on dates with men and they're like, it was a good date, but like, their chemistry, or he said this one thing. And I'm a believer of like at least going on 3 dates. And I love if one of those dates is like an experience rather than just that awkward like dinner, chew your food. God forbid it's sushi and it falls off the chopsticks.
Right.
But like, so what are the mistakes that men make on first dates? And how can a woman like be more understanding or make a man feel more comfortable? Because we're going with this whole concept that like men are human and they're nervous too.
Well, okay, I'll tell you this one story. I think I've told this to you before, but my sister-in-law, she's now in a relationship again, but she was going through a divorce and she was back out there and having fun and dating. And she was on this date with this guy who she had met through friends. And the first time that they had hung out with each other, they were bantering, they were having back and forth conversation. It was all, everybody was having a good time. And they got onto their date and she called me from the bathroom and she said, Marni, I don't know what to do. We're on our date. He hasn't asked me one question about me. And he's just talking and talking and talking and talking and talking. And this isn't the guy that I met before. And I don't know what to do. And I said, well, there's a couple of things that are going on. Either he's a complete jerk,
right,
who is so self-absorbed, but most likely he's not that person if he's friends with your friends and they vouch for them and you had a great conversation last time. So let's take a step back from that. The other options are that he's nervous. So he's not really thinking about you right now because he's so wrapped up in attracting you or having fun and providing a great date for you that he can't concentrate on you, or he's been told by so many other guys out there, you never want to have a silent moment on your date, that he's trying to fill every silence by talking or asking you questions. So what you can do to help him calm down is you can go back to the table, smile at him, put your hand on his wrist or on his forearm, and just let him know that you're there on the date with him and you're having a good time, either verbally or just through that body language. That will be enough to calm him down, because you're saying, I'm in it. You don't have to worry about things. We can do this together, and see what happens. And she texted me later and she said, Marni, your voodoo magic worked.
Yay!
It was amazing. I mean, they didn't date for very long afterwards, but he ended up calming down and going back to that guy that she had first met. So, that's what women can do to help. And then men also get flustered. They get insecure. They get nervous. They don't want to screw up that first date, and they forget to be in the moment. A lot of men also, and women do this too, a lot of men forget that they're there as well on the date. They're concentrating so much on whether or not that girl likes them, likes what they're saying, likes what they're doing, likes the place that they've taken them to, without getting any feedback from these women to let them know otherwise, that it just becomes very, very overwhelming and high pressure for them.
Yeah. So I think that's important, is like, we go into this, both sexes, like, it's all about me, right? Do I look good? Does he like me? Am I saying the right thing? Am I wearing the right thing? And he's doing the same thing. So what if we can be compassionate, right? If that's something that's important to you, and think, how can I make this person be comfortable by letting them know that I want them to win? Because I think a lot of women sort of do dating with, like, prove to me you're not a jerk like everyone else.
Right.
And their vibe is kind of like, whether their arms are crossed or not, they're like, yeah. So what do you think about that? Like, what can they do to make a guy feel more comfortable?
They can say out loud verbally, I'm having a really great time. Or they can touch them, or they can compliment them. They can do all the appreciative, nice things that they want to receive at the end of the date. Say, I had a really great time with you. You can move close so that maybe he sees, oh, she does want to be kissed. It's really just like helping him instead of making him do all the work and second guess himself. It's not throwing yourself at a man if you say, I had a really nice time. I think you're really interesting, and I would love to see you again. There's nothing wrong with that at all, and it's still very feminine.
I love it. Okay. So let's go to this topic before we wrap up. Everybody wants to know, because I do, again, all these man panels, everybody always asks, what's a guy looking for? Like, what is a quality woman? What makes a guy say, this is somebody I want to be with long term? What qualities are they looking for that are really keeper qualities?
Well, I have to say, it's the same as for women. It's really at the core, people just want to be understood and seen, right? That's the potential for long term. But then second to that is it's all very individual about what people are looking for, what makes them happy. So I would say that, for you as a woman, you want to figure out what your top 3 values are, your top 3 needs in relationships are, so that you can clearly communicate that to the people in your life. And then for men, if you can either try to suss out what their needs are, or as you get to know them better, really work with those men to find out what their needs are so that you can continuously give it to them. But at the very top pinnacle, everybody's looking to be understood and heard and seen for who they are, and also for both sides to understand we're just human beings. We're not perfect unicorns. And we screw up sometimes, and it's just like they want the same things that we do. They don't want different things.
That's really simple, but I think that's really powerful, because I always tell women, be the person you want to attract, right? Yeah. Like, be understanding, be polite, be direct, all these things. And so I think it's really important that, we really understand what Marni's saying is that, men are men. There's quality guys that are just like laying in bed at night going, where are all the quality women? And you know that you're all out there. So the quality men are out there, and it's important to sort of shift into like, starting to recognize that rather than ruling them out. Start going in there and going, wow, what can I notice that's great about this person?
It is funny. Okay, so, well, not funny. Okay, so I've been married for a long time. You've been married for a long time, and with your husband for a long time. And so it is hard sometimes to step back into that single woman's head. And like, I know that as a married person, I can see things differently than people can who are single. Like my sister, she dates and she's a little pickier and guarded, and she'll write somebody off because they said the wrong thing, or they didn't, I don't know, they did like little things where for me, I'm thinking in my mind, oh, no, give this person another chance. But I know that on a bigger level, something else was happening other than just that little thing. I think if women and if men can really maybe identify more about what it is that they're looking for on a date and what really is the problem, like maybe it's not the fact that he, picked his nails on the date, but it was the fact that he, didn't really sound like he was a passionate person. It's something else, like, so that once you can isolate those things and see those things, then you can start to pick people on the front end a little bit more before you waste your time going on dates with them. Is that making sense? I feel like...
Yeah, no, I think it does. And I think that, I think what you're really saying too is that he's doing whatever he's doing with his nails, and that's irritating and that's annoying. And also, have you taken the time to actually find out what he's passionate about and see what he does with his body language when he's talking about, teaching karate to kids on the weekends, like, because that's his passion, is working with kids. And notice, does he still do that? Right? Because
don't write them off for silly things. Really, just like not go in with an agenda, but go in to try to be curious about people and find the positives, but the positives that resonate with you, as opposed to letting somebody else dictate your date, because you may not get to see these wonderful things that you're looking for if you don't ask the right questions, if you don't share the right stories. And I'm not saying that you're not right 100%, that this person, because they picked their nails, they're the wrong person for you. In your gut, you do at the end of the day know what a good match is for you. But sometimes women and men write off people a little bit too early. And I think that going in with a much more clear frame of reference, I guess, or I don't want people to go in with an agenda though, but like just being kinder to yourself and to the other person, but understanding yourself will help you understand the people that you're dating much better.
Absolutely. And well, we call it data dating, right? So you're collecting data, you're collecting information about this person, but not in an interview-like style, and you're having fun. And both things have to happen simultaneously. Right. And that's what puts people at ease. So Marni, before we end, like I have 3 daughters. Okay.
Yeah.
If I was going to be like, I'm going to give you a minute, and you're going to give like my daughters the one thing they need to know about men so that they can have healthy, happy relationships in their future, what would it be? Like, what's the one, like, if you just could know this, like, dating would be so much better. Your relationships would be so much better.
That men are wonderful. Men are absolutely wonderful. If they have clear direction, guidance, and verbal instructions from us, they can be anything we want them to be, and they will do anything we want them to do. They want to make us happy, and they're so good. That's really what I would say. That they're good. I mean, they may be stupid, but they're good. No, I'm just kidding. They're simple, but that's like a wonderful thing about them, is that they are simple, and we try to overcomplicate them, and that frustrates us a lot. And there's no need for that frustration. So if you can remove that and remember how wonderful they are, and they're made just the way they are for a reason, then you'll be 10 times happier with them in your life.
Oh my gosh, I'm like, my kids are listening to this episode.
How old are your daughters?
Oh, one is going to be 21 in December. One is 18. And one is just started high school, 14.
Oh, my goodness.
Crazy.
It is.
I know. It's good. And they actually have really nice boyfriends.
Oh, all of them?
Well, two of them had really nice boyfriends, but broke up. One because they're both going to college far away. One because they've been dating since high school and they feel like they need to take a year off and explore other things. I know they're so mature; it's like weird.
Seriously.
And then my other daughter, who's in high school, she's in high school, but she has a very nice young man who is courting her currently.
Nice. I love that.
I really do, and I'll just say this to end because I thought it was really cute since we're talking about men is because I have these 3 daughters, they pimp me out for dating advice constantly. And I love to do it. And the other day, my first little conversation with one of her male friends who's trying to negotiate a relationship, a long distance relationship. And he's like a young man, he's 18, right? And I love that what he said because it really speaks to what you said is that men are wonderful and they just want to know how to make you happy. And what this young guy said was like, I think like I'm becoming a better boyfriend because I'm learning what it means to be a good boyfriend. And I'm learning like how to make her happy by getting more information and asking better questions instead of trying to read her mind. And the more that I do that, the better boyfriend I can be.
Oh my God, I'll date him.
Right? And but what I really thought was that it's, I call it manvolution, right? Like it's this evolution that men go through as they become really relationship ready. And there's a time where they don't really give a shit about what makes you happy because they do just want to have sex or they do just want to further their career and have you just be their date and +1 at like company functions, right? But when a guy is really relationship ready, and I really think this is universal, and so please tell me if I'm wrong, they really, really, they're like, if I could have a manual, I would read it, I would memorize it because I just want to know how to make you happy. Yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like my husband, all he wants to do is make me happy. And every time I say I'm not happy or I'm disappointed, it's just like a kick in the balls for him. It's horrible. So, he's trying his best just as we are. We're trying our best as well. So the more that we can acknowledge the other person is trying their best and doing what they can as human beings, balancing their whole lives and trying to make us happy, happier everybody participating in the relationship will be.
I love it. This is brilliant. And this is not only dating advice. This is like advice that you can use if you're in a relationship as well. So I just love having these conversations with you. I could talk to you forever.
Me too.
I know. It's so good. And I really just appreciate how you are helping men to be their best. So that they can show up for the really quality women that are out there. So I just really appreciate that. So where can people find out more about what you do?
Okay, they can go to winggirlmethod.com. And so for women, there is a link at the bottom of my website that says advice for women. And it will point you towards a website for women and tell you about a program I have called That's Not How Men Work. They can listen to my free podcast called Ask Women, which is available on iTunes. It's on SoundCloud, on Audio Boom. It's a good, entertaining show, but it really gives you insight into the questions men ask and where they're most frustrated and confused. Again, I learned so much from the men that I work with, so I think it's really like a big eye opener for a lot of women to listen to that show. And that's where you can see me. That's
awesome. And all this information will be in the show notes as well. And yes, ladies, the man panel is like always the highlight. So like if you could just go and listen to Marni jam on understanding men, you will become a man expert, which will help you be a better woman, a better partner, a better dater. All right, ladies, this has been amazing. Thank you, Marni. I love you a lot, and I will talk to you all really soon. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.